Okay, it's November the 30th, last day of November, and the last piece of the puzzle came today, and I started working on it. This is a DC to DC up converter, and what you do is you give it 1 to 5 volts, and then it'll output on this end 5 volts. So the idea was going to be to run the kitchen timer on two AA batteries, two rechargeable AA batteries, which produce about 2.6 volts together, and then this DC to DC up converter would turn that into the 5 volts that the kitchen timer needs to run. So when I first got the thing, I hooked it up to measure its current consumption to see if I'll be able to actually use this thing in a low power state. And when I first plugged it in, it was 3 milliamps, which was way too much. That'll drain the batteries way too quickly. But it did have an LED built onto it, which showed that it was powered. So when I desoldered that LED, you might be able to see the pads right there. Desoldered that, and then when I powered it up, it only drew 22 microamps. So that'll work. That's good. So so I'll have to desolder the LED on all these boards that I got, but that's good. That's a good workaround. So then the other thing that I did was measured the current state of the timer, the way it is working now, how much power it will draw, like kind of worst case scenario, and not using the DC to DC up converter, just running it on 5 volts worth of batteries, and using this handy website here where you can tell it how big your batteries are and how much uptime you'll have, stuff like that. And I put in the 34 milliamp amp draw that the batteries, that the 5 volts produced by batteries will do, and it's about 260 days is what it's saying. So just a number for me to have a starting point to work with. So then I plugged in the DC-DC converter and 2 batteries. I bought a ton of these AA battery holders, and that hold 2. I thought it would be okay. Turns out it draws 91 milliamps, so it's not perfectly efficient running that converter, and that produces a number of 102 days. So I'm feeling like that's not going to be enough. So so as a compromise, I actually did have one of these 3 AA battery holders laying around, and so I thought, I wonder what 3 might do. So I quickly hooked that up, and it turns out it draws 53 milliamps doing that, and 53 milliamps gives me 172 days. And this is running the timer in this worst case max power scenario, 10 minutes a day every day. So 172 days in this kind of worst case scenario. I don't think it'll be 53 milliamps. I think it'll be less than that, because I might not have this knob on the whole time when it's running for that 10 minutes. Might turn that off and just have this LED running, and I'll have the timer, the numbers being displayed. So this knob here is drawing a lot of power, the LED that's in it. I think it'll be less than that, but 172 days is pretty good. I think that'll be good. So I think what I'll do is order some of these 3 AA battery holders, and that'll be a good compromise. And then I'll continue to use this. But yeah, so that, good progress there. And then the other thing I wanted to show was the box. So when I first started thinking about this, I just made a real simple box. There's the display, the knob, the button. I tried orienting them a little bit differently and changing it up a little bit. Here I put like a grill for the speakers. And then my buddy at work, who's like a real craftsman, who's a box maker, he makes these beautiful candle holders and boxes and stuff like that. Does inlay work and stuff. He came up with this shape, which is great. It's got like a door on the back so that you could access the batteries. And so we're going down this path, and he asked me to learn how to use this program called Google SketchUp and put all the parts inside of it, and then he can use this to figure out the dimensions that the box will have to be. So that's what I was doing the past couple of weekends, learning how to use this program and then putting some of the parts in that weren't already available in Google SketchUp. So like this display, the 7-segment display actually was in there, and I didn't have to make it, but the buzzers were not, and like this button was not, and the motherboard down here, it was not, but the chips that are on the motherboard, here's the microcontroller and then here's the shift register. Those were actually in there, but like the board itself was not. You know what? Actually, I didn't even search for the board. Maybe it is in there. But I just made a green box. So here's the DC to DC up converter. That's where I'm thinking that it'll go. But yeah, we got a shape here, and it looks like, you know, it's in the orientation. Everything's in the orientation of how it would be sitting in, and like the door would be in the back here, and then it would fold down, and the batteries would be attached to that back door, and then yeah, it looks like it'll be good. So yeah, so that's the box, and then progress on the power side.